take roll, and if you'll stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Has council had time to review the agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please show a voting sign. Opposed, motion passes. Public comments. Persons who wish to address the city council regarding items on the agenda may do so as that item is called. Persons who wish to address the city council regarding items not on the agenda and that are under the jurisdiction of the city council may do so at this time when called upon by the mayor. Comments on personnel matters pending in the courts, or with other outside tribunals are not permitted. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Any presentation is for information purposes only. No action will be taken. Speakers. Mr. Walden.
Number one, we still need a decision on Madison and Buckeye on taking down stop signs or stop lights. It seems that the biggest problem we're confronting now as a committee or the city even is the annual payment to the water plant. I got some suggestions just to the councilman to think about. Take the $300,000 we're going to give to the hospital and pay on our liability. We owe that liability. We don't owe the hospital. Then from your actual revenue, water revenue as it is budgeted, it should be over $2 million this year in the water fund. Go ahead and take the $275,000. You're not going to break even, don't worry about it. You got another 5 years of this, and in that 5 years we can figure out a lot of different things. I'd like to see you combine the water production, water generation, distribution, wastewater and sanitation in one department. You'd be surprised the money you'll save, redundancies, equipment, and personnel. I'd like to see you appoint a committee of business people to determine what businesses could be created to sell our water. I spent less than 4 hours a week and a half ago in general discussion and got an obligation that they would seek 250,000 gallons a day from us when it's appropriate. So it doesn't take much to get out there. And that you're not out there is what bothers me. Anyway, as for the insurance increase of 12%, I thought that was self-insured. Your insurance fund isn't self-insured except in major. So where's the premium increase coming in? As for your dependents, if you take the 12%, that only raises $30 a month. And that takes you 12% out of that account. And we're wasting a lot of money on studies that don't do anything. Need to look at that. Our planning cycle will just continue to overplan everything and underdo.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the council? Seeing none, I'll move to the consent agenda. Are there questions about the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'd second that motion.
Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor, please show a voting sign. Opposed, motion passes. Dangerous and unsafe structure. Do we have anyone else wishing to address on dangerous structure at 1008 East Street? Okay.
Good evening. Here just really to give an update on 1008 East Street. At the February 23rd 25th council meeting. It was one of the houses I brought before the council to condemn and tear down. The owner was here with a gentleman and Mr. Stanley that wanted to buy that house and fix it up. After that, during the council meeting, council voted to give the owner 120 days to do some repairs to the building. The deal between those two, it fell through the current owner. They have torn off the back entry room of the house and done some work and put some siding up there. I'd like to see more. I actually haven't been inside the house. Nothing I'd like more than to see them get this house far enough to the point that I can take off the list. I did send them a letter 1st of July, asking them to come in so we could have a sit down and discussion of where they're at, so maybe I could possibly see where they're at. Tell them about, they're to a point they need to get a permit and tell them about the neighborhood revitalization. I have not heard from them. I also sent an examiner a week ago to tell them that we were going to the council tonight. I was hoping they would be here just to give us a heads up on where they're at, what's going on with this house. I did bring some business, have an iPad, sit down, so if you want to see them, I come by the deck, because very back of the house, they re-sided and put in a new door, and they do it. Other than that, they've got the windows covered on the inside, so I couldn't really see what they're doing inside. Conversation, they have done some work on the floor. Other than that, I would really like to see them at least get the siding done. The roof's not as bad as I thought it was. It does need re-roof, but if they can get the siding done where it's not a blight on the neighborhood and keep the yard up. Right now, they've got a lot of the metal stuff they've taken out of the building, just pop up in the back. The problem is they were there a month and a half ago, did some work, and I haven't seen them back since. So that's it. I'm just trying to get them in, stop by so we can have a meeting. I know where they're at. So I don't know if I'm asking for direction from the council or just an update of where that house is.
Now, the house has since been sold since the January 14th meeting?
No, this was the house that was gonna be sold to a contractor. The sale fell through.
Sale fell through, and the original owner still owns that.
Right, and I've talked to them, and that fell through kind of almost 60 day after it was it was a weird deal. I would like you to talk to her and come back with more information. I think they're doing some work, and
Is this the
I'd
owner
like to see it
here?
extended.
Speak of the devil.
I was gonna say, it is a cute.
Couldn't find you a house.
Okay. No, we just talked about it. Please come up, council, we have some time for you.
Yeah, I mean, it really has the potential to be a really, really
Yeah.
cute house.
What I thought was that what work you guys have done that I've seen on the outside.
We're trying.
And I'm just here to give an update to the council and like I explained to them. I'm looking forward to the house getting to a certain point where I can take it off the list. Okay, so
How long, Greg, do you think they would need to get it to meet your standards to be taken off the list?
my biggest thing is the outside. That's what the neighbors see. That's what, if I do get a complaint about a house, that's what the complaint about, what they can see on the outside. If you get the outside of it done, nobody cares if it takes you 2 years or 3 years to get the inside done. It's what the outside, it's what it's doing to their property. You know, how it's making the neighborhood look, and basically, it's right on East Street, it's coming into town.
So 30, 60 days?
We're trying to farm right now too. We intended to sell it, but that sale fell through. He just did
I'd
not
like
want that
that,
deal.
I'd like that floor. This thing's been milked out, and tentatively this building has been sold to the man, and he killed probably 90 to 120 days for our time. Now, we can go, who's this?
This is right now.
We can go wherever we want to go with this, but my wife caught Greg talking to this guy that's tentatively supposed to buy this property.
We'd like to give you all the time, we'd like to give you the time you want to get the property. We want to know kind of a timeline so that you can come back in 120 days and we can remove the property from the list. And that way you're done with us and you're done with grading. And so we're just kind of wondering, what would your timeline be? The council seems fairly willing to give you, so if you say 120 days, if you say you would like,
It's.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Right. We're
Is-
working on it whenever we can, we really are, but he's an over-the-road truck driver, he's here on the weekends, now we're trying to farm. It's, I mean.
And I see that throws a wrench into things.
Sure.
And we appreciate that. And like I said, it's such a cute little house. I think once it's fixed up,
Right.
it's
All
gonna
the
be a great
siding for it,
addition.
actually, all the siding for it, it's in the house, we haven't.
Okay,
put the
so
siding out.
that answers those questions. You know that siding is there and that it's been purchased and it's going to go up. We understand the time restraints. I know, trucking, farming, any kind of self-employment takes a lot of time, and that summertime is not, and it's been, really hot, but, I mean, if you guys have more time, you've got the materials, so it's not a matter of you don't have the money and you can't buy the materials.
Right, exactly.
You've got them.
It's the
You just
time
need the
that's the
time.
problem. The time
Yeah.
is the problem, and we are trying, we're doing what we can. I know it's probably not enough, and as much as you guys want to see, but I mean, we are trying.
So if we was to give you to October, the middle of October, extend this out, do you think you could have the siding on by then?
All I can tell you is I hope so.
why don't we do another 120 days?
That'd be
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy.
And that gives you all the way through November. Hopefully the crops start to field and things slow down until you get it. If the council's willing and if Greg's willing in that way, and then you can come talk to us again if there is a hiccup in between there. We really like the house and it seems like you're willing to put the money into it. We've done some work on it, we've done some supplies. We want to kind of keep moving forward though. And again, the idea is for you to be done with us as quick as possible.
Sure.
And to be done and to fix up the inside on your own time.
Right, that's the main
We're not
thing.
here to tear down no one's house unless it's completely unsafe.
And here we are talking about this house when you guys should be talking about other stuff. I get that, I get
Is
that.
council agreeable to 120 days?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Do we need to make a proposal?
You need to make a motion? or-
I think
I
we're
think
getting
we
ready.
should make a motion just to,
I would
but I
make-
think, I would also like to have that included. They come in and visit, because I think as Greg talked about, they're kind of to the point where they probably need a building permit to do the work that
Yeah,
they're
the
going to
permit's
do.
gonna do what it's.
And we can talk to you about neighborhood revitalization, just,
Yes.
Yes, that's.
Okay, I would make a motion that we extend the, whatever timeline, rehab timeline for 1008 East Street, an additional 120 days.
I'll second that.
There's a motion to second to extend the timeline for 120 days on 1008 East Street. All those in favor, please show by sign. Opposed? Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And again, please get with Mr. Hutton and talk about the neighborhood revitalization
Yes.
program. That would be very
We're done
beneficial.
with the meeting for now, so. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is that a local contractor that backed out?
No.
He was from the Kansas City area, and, in their defense, they had a done deal. And then after that night at the council meeting, the contractor backed out on, like they're saying. I didn't know the time frame, so put it down to 90 days after that council meeting, the guy backs out, we're here now down to 30 days. And, I just need to get the house to a point that it's off the list. And, honestly, if it takes them 2, 3, 5 years to finish inside, I don't care. It looks good, and it looks good in the neighborhood.
Item A, unfinished, or new business, item A, dangerous structure bid.
120 days, I don't know.
It'll put it basically, that's 4 months, it'll put it in November,
Middle of November.
middle end of November, so.
Get them done farming and food, weather.
Deciding is kind of a pain on the two-story, but it can be done.
Yeah.
From the next item, from the February 25th council meeting, there were 5 other houses in question. One at 623, just another down at 623 North Cottonwood, the owners of Moore Brothers have torn it down. They've got it down there with just a few remnants on the floor. Once they get that out there and they plug off the sewer, that will be a closed deal.
Which
The
one's
other,
that?
623 North Cottonwood.
They're the guys that are fixing up the other house in Cottonwood. Is that
Oh,
correct?
Yes. Half a block north of Lincoln. The other 4 houses, we recently put them out for bid. As you see on the agenda item, we have published, advertised it in the paper. I sent it to 3 local contractors, just so they would have the contract. I sent it to LB Dirt Works, Iola and Sons, and Rayville Depot. Rayville Depot was the only one that bid on it. So before you tonight, I have the prices that he bid on them for a total of $10,900. I think it's a very fair price on them, and I'm here to ask the council's approval to proceed with having them tear the courthouse down.
Okay, isn't it 602, are they still living in there?
No, they have actually moved out and moved to another address on North Street.
I'd make a motion that we approve the bid submitted by Ray's Metal Depot for a total project cost of $10,900 and proceed to demolish the structures and clear the properties based on section 8-501 of the Unified Development Code.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please show voting sign. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Mutual Fire Service, Sid.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this was just kind of a simple agreement. Anderson County was looking to update their mutual aid agreement with us. It's been reviewed by the fire chief there and the city attorney, and it's recommended for approval.
I'd make a motion that we approve the agreement for fire service mutual aid between Anderson County Rural Fire District 1 and Iola Fire Department and authorize the necessary signatures.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please show voting sign. Opposed? Motion passes. Public hearing. Item C.
As part of the budget process, council needs to set and hold a public hearing on the 2020 budget. We have to publish the budget in the state forms, which are a little bit different than the worksheets that we've been working on. But basically, those will reflect the same numbers. We have to publish that 10 days prior to that hearing, and we're just looking to set the public hearing at our next meeting, which is Monday, August 12th, at 6 p.m. at the Park Community Building. And we'll talk about the budget here in just a minute.
Questions or discussion?
This is just voting for setting this for a public hearing doesn't necessarily hold us to any budgetary approvals based on the documents, correct?
Right. This is just the hearing, because what we'll do is, we will then, after tonight, we will take whatever information is gathered, generate the state forms, publish the state forms prior to the public hearing, and have that discussion, the hearing and the final discussion at the August 12th meeting.
So the public hearing is August 12th.
If you set it for that day.
And then that day is the day we want to have any final discussion held on
We
the
would
budget.
be seeking budget approval on August 12th. We would hold the public hearing, close the public hearing, and seek approval for the budget at that time. And the thing is, to keep in mind too, once we publish it, we can't increase that budget after it's published.
But
It can be decreased. But I guess I would caution against getting to that point and making 20 cuts to everything on the fly, because then it gets confusing on what we're trying to do. That's why tonight kind of needs to sum everything up so that we can publish it as we want it.
So in your mind, every councilman would come, or would come to the 12th? What's that?
That's a regular meeting.
Right, but they would come on the 12th and be prepared to approve a budget that night. Not come on the 12th and have a 3-hour conversation about what we're going to approve and not approve.
We can have that conversation. It's just, my concern is if you have that conversation at that night, you're trying to make cuts and everything on the fly, and it gets kind of jarbled up what we're really trying to get to.
What date's the budget due to the state by?
I think August 12th. 20th.
It goes to the county first, she submits it Tuesday. We both submit it, but she has to put her seal on her.
On the 24th, so that's Saturday.
So we take that. Yes.
23rd would be a Friday, 26th would be Monday.
August 25th, adopt a budget due to the county clerk electronically.
That really doesn't need much time for an open discussion, does it?
Well, that's what we had work sessions last week and tonight. It's kind of the same protocol that we've had the last several years. We had 2 budget work sessions, and then the next council meeting, we have a work session, and then we're publishing it and ready to go after that.
I would say if you do have questions or concerns, you can sit here for me.
Yeah.
This upcoming week, or myself, and I can get with them as well. Is there a motion to set this public hearing though, before we go into discussions?
Doesn't seem like we have a choice because there's not a second meeting, right, between the student.
I'll make a motion to set a public budget hearing for the proposed 2020 budget at the next regular city council meeting on Monday, August 12th, 2019, at 6 p.m. at the Park Community Building.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second for a public hearing, August 12th, 2019, at 6 p.m. at the Park Community Building. All those in favor, please show the voting sign. Opposed? Motion passes. Ron, you.
Okay.
You want to start with the $1 million question here?
I'm going to start with recreation.
Okay.
So I handed out some updated sheets. They are just to save a little paper. I just printed off the kind of overview sheet for each of those, for each of the funds that I provided you tonight. And the funds that I provided you tonight were basically based off of the discussion that we had last Wednesday and Thursday of the places that we were wanting to look to make some sort of modification. So I believe it would be page 4. So the main thing that we changed here is I went in, we trimmed a little bit back off of the expenditures after visiting with Jason. And then we kind of talked, we wanted to use the electric because to help try to bring it into balance. Now, the bottom line, the net income, the revenue minus expenditures is still in the negative. I feel like we've got some reserve in there that will help cover that. I also kind of looked at what we did in 18, and like in 18, I think we spent 85% of the expenditures. And so if we spent 90% of the expenditures in 2020, the fund will be even. So that's kind of why there's still that loss that's playing in there, because I didn't want to take more out of the electric fund than we absolutely had to. As some of the expenditures that we trimmed back, we're still trying to save a little bit for some equipment, but I took that $8,000 that we're going to put back for the next pool painting, knowing that either we can save a little bit more subsequent years, or like we talked about, that might be something that we take out of that CIP fund, that we
We're looking at
excess.
We're looking at
What?
We're looking at page 4, page 5.
This now is,
Page 5.
you have, I'm looking at, what's on the screen is the more details.
Page Okay, so which, was that the first night or the second night in our
That was
packets that
like
we had?
first night.
Okay. So I can find it in my packet.
So it's technically down to
Do you remember what
in my head.
page
I
was
think
it?
it was,
It's coordinated, wasn't it?
They both came on. I think you just shut that one off.
Okay, I have it.
Like,
Page
I'm gonna go.
41. Okay, page, yeah, 41, 42, yeah. Let's see where you changed. Okay, so, are we on the first page of it? No, that's revenue, so we're looking at operation.
They're the same TV, so you turn one on and the other one goes off.
That's what's going on.
The operations budget, which is 43.
There you go.
Expenditures.
Now you have to go turn it
That is
off.
summary.
See.
Okay, I think now we have, you're seeing what I'm seeing.
Okay, so what page is that in this
So
original
in
packet?
that original packet, you're gonna be looking at page 45.
45,
I'm at clear at the bottom.
okay. Okay,
So we had 15 for equipment reserve, we moved that to 10. We had 3,500 for the employee benefit, we had 8,000 for the
and we just took both of those out?
yeah. And then there was some minor changes above there. We went from, if you look at, I'm gonna scroll up, if you look at commodities, we went from 126 to 113,000.
And what got cut on that?
There was a little bit out of building maintenance, a little bit out of new improvements, a little bit out of swimming pool supplies. I didn't want to take it down too far because we are trying to replace some chairs. Those are kind
So
of
we
getting to
took
that.
swimming
down.
pool supplies from 30 to 22.5, is that what that
It
says?
was originally 30, yes, and now it's 22.5. And I believe the other one was baseball, softball expense, we took that down to 10.
Hold on a second. There's not a PDF version of this that we received, right?
No.
And it's not in this paper that we have here.
So
It was
what
in
you
our
would have
package that we
received
got.
from last week, it would have been in the original draft would have been in there.
But these changes were,
All I'm showing, what I gave you tonight was what I call the overview page, which is just basically gives you revenue and some summary of expenditures, just because
doesn't have the detail in it.
it doesn't have this detail.
Paul, what was your question?
The money that was saved by not redoing the floor in the park, is that included in this budget?
The money that we've spent some of that money to
Some of
redo
it
the
was
floor.
saved,
And some of that is in a CIP fund that's for Parks and Rec and Trails.
So that's
It is, that fund is not, I don't have a sheet on that, but I am gonna have one, but it's not gonna have any expenditures on it. I just haven't, I thought of that today late, that I don't have that one, but it'll look like the CIP for, gas and water. It just won't have any projects in it. It'll just show the money that we put in there last year and what we dedicated.
We just made a little bit out of it. We had to put the down payment on the floor.
Yeah,
A small
so
percentage.
it'll just show that, but it won't.
How much money would that be?
About 120.
Yeah, left over between that is about 120, 150, less than 150.
So looking at this overview, those items would be within a subcategory of one of these overview items?
Yes, so if you look at the detail, it has commodities, and on the overview, there is a summation of commodities, so.
Barely, because it's from these kind of, I've got very, my eyes very
So there's commodities. 2020 is this column here, it's 113, and on that front page, commodities should be 113 under 2020.
Before the 12th, will we have this updated copy, maybe a PDF sent to us?
If we come out of this and have a final, what I would probably do is generate a, kind of like what I had, but it'll be all one big PDF, a draft PDF that goes with that. Because we'll use that to generate the state reports. I mean, I guess, is the question, you want to trim more out of the budget to get it in line? Because if that's the case, then that's, to me, that is staff's duty to try to figure out what's the best place to trim money.
No, I guess my concern really is all is that I'm trying to decipher information off of this that I can't see, I guess.
Aaron, if you want to sit down here, I have all of my pages with me.
I think we should have
The-
received a PDF document of this previously. I think that's just.
Well, that, I mean, if I would have known that, I could have sent that out. I
We
just,
just seem to be common sense that we would, if we were working on a budget, that we would receive copies of the budget beforehand that we could review.
well, what we have done in the past is I always give paper copies during the budget work sessions. And we go through those. And there's never PDF distributed until we get to what would be the 12th, where we put together the final draft of that.
Can we just scroll up to the top there, so take a look? Just into the commodities, please. So when you take 2,000 out of the baseball and softball expenses, is there anything to shed on, anything that down, or just, hey, we're just gonna find a way to,
We're just gonna find a way to,
concession stand supplies? Do we, is there a possible revenue over the concession stand?
we don't really do a cost analysis on that. We haven't. I think that probably, the concessions themselves probably break even.
Yeah,
But I mean,
if it's not, I would say that's something that we aren't even breaking even at, would be a lot of sense of doing. That's $9,000, right? Or $7,000.
well, but then you're gonna lose, and we can go and look and see what the revenue from that, I think it's split out.
Go, it's on 13,
Um,
13 concessions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's making, last year, making.
So last year, we made 9,000.
And you expect 5, 6.
Yeah.
That's what I just asked.
But it's not done by each concession stand, so you don't know if that's the pool concession stand, the baseball concession
Yeah,
stand.
that's relevant. So if you have a $6,000 investment, if it makes doubles your money into your investment.
Right.
Can we scroll down this one?
The athletic field maintenance, is that from the school?
Which field?
I don't know, I can only read, it says athletic maintenance.
That would be any of the fields that we maintain.
That's an expense, any field.
And the swimming, so we're doing the painting project this year on the pool, so that's a done deal. So what you've got there is just our planning for the next paint job, the 22.5.
No, this is regular, what I would call operational expenses of chemicals, any sort of lifeguard equipment or safety paraphernalia stuff, all that goes out of swimming pool supplies. And that's why you know, it's been as high as almost 20, and we had 30 in it this year. Backed it down, but I didn't want to go to 20 because like we know we need to probably be, well, we are going to replace some chairs this year, but then we probably need to be replacing some next year. Because we really haven't done that.
And it depends how hot, wet we are. If we're hot and dry, it burns off those chemicals pretty quick.
And if we're really wet, then it
Yeah,
takes more
So
chemicals to.
the personnel services increase, is that basically the insurance, or is that elsewhere?
Personnel across the board. There was some question about whether we were picking and choosing who was going to get what. Across the board, all personnel saw the same increase. It included 12.5% for health insurance. It included 2.5% for COLA and any scheduled merit increase. So if you had somebody that hadn't topped out in their pay scale, it was expected to be a merit increase.
But like we said, 6 months through, we're about 45%.
That was on the general fund side, we were about 45%.
And we're looking to track that through, and how it worked out last year.
And we take a peek and look at the contractual service revenue.
Contractuals. Where?
Technology expenses jumping to 8,500.
That is, we wanted to put a little money in there to explore moving to Civic Rec rather than Active. Right now, we use a system called Active to do our registrations. When they do that registration, my understanding is it's not real user friendly. They also take money off the top of that registration. So we don't really have an expense for Active, but we also don't get the full receipt of our charges.
So the two companies are called Active and Civic.
Civic Rec. And Civic Rec is an offshoot of the Civic Plus that we utilize for our website. But they have, and that's something that again, that may be something we don't want to explore, but I think it would give our users a more user-friendly interface to use. It allows us to, right now, if we have somebody that needs a refund, we still get charged for issuing that refund.
What do the fees add up to a year for using the Active?
I don't have that right in front of me. I think it's about $4,000 a year.
Do you know what percentage of users, so this is just for registering?
Well, it's registering and kind of, I understand, I think they can do some of the program, like some of the drafting or some of that, and the scheduling for those, like for baseball and
Yeah,
stuff.
put the
It
baseball
would really,
on draft.
it would help them do all that.
Scheduling.
Yeah, it helps you it helps you put them all into the spreadsheet essentially, or we'll do it automatically, I believe.
Do you know what percent of registers are done electronically versus walk-in paper application?
I don't know that number. I think some of that could be impaired by it because the interface is so terrible to. I think you get with the current one, you also, we don't have control to help reset passwords or anything like that, so people just make a new account and then make a new account. And with the Civic Rec, there's a little bit more
How long have we been
administration we
using
can
the
do.
Active one?
It's been,
What page is this that we're looking at?
It's not.
It would be page 44, because I think the other page is
Okay, then
45.
I don't even see it on page 44. Mine goes from legal expense, publications, telephone, insurance, training,
Right.
seminars.
We changed telephone expense to technology expense because we have been using telephone expense for internet access, for anything technology typically just gets lumped in there.
Okay, so then you
Right.
And it
changed
was-
that, but it
right,
was
and it-
4,000.
Right, because I talked to Jason and we added the active, or the Civic Plus
So really, I mean, we went from 4,000 to what?
to 13, because that's the first year. It's like with any software, you have a kind of buy-in
But it
and
just
it's a
seems like we're
transition
kind of,
there.
all those other cuts that you made are just kind of washing with this increase. So I don't know if it's that necessary
Does this
right
also
now.
include the phone there?
Yes, it would include phone, internet.
But the big expense is that civic thing.
That's the biggest change in this. And that's something that, you know, what the council just wants us to continue to use active if we can. We feel like we're trying to improve our customer service using better technology tools than we have, and it's just a
Okay,
transition.
yeah, and now that next line down, insurance, that is a different number from what was on this original also. Am I
Because
correct in that?
it could be, because
I
I went
have
back and double checked all the insurance numbers to make sure that we were in line with what we were looking at.
So what's our total of these contractual services now on this current spreadsheet that you have up?
Contractuals, 53,475.
And it was 45,000, so it seems like we
53.
But that 8,000 is probably that civic.
Yeah,
thing.
9,000, I mean, that puts you at 54, so we're actually below.
I mean, it's the increase in the insurance and the increase in this, maybe this year's not the right year to start that new program. Maybe that is something that can be held off if it's working. I mean, if it comes
Well,
down.
I don't know that it works
Well, but,
well.
I mean, if it comes down to it, there's still nothing wrong with filling out a piece of paper and running it up to the rec building.
But that also then there is efficiencies lost there, because then you have people that coming in, they're working on something, they have to take time to offer that customer service when it can be offered
Well,
on a digital site.
That new number was what?
Well, but it's also customer service that has that digital interface, because that's what the young parents, young people want,
Well, I
is to
mean,
be able to do it on
And
their
I
phone.
understand that, but I'm just saying, maybe this year, maybe put this off one more year, and maybe something else will come up. I mean, it's quite an increase, so.
And that's fine, I think you're never gonna be ready for that, because next year's budget isn't gonna look any better than this year's budget.
But it's not a matter of life and death and whether or not they can run the rec building if we have this $8,000 program or not. The rec programs have been running for years and without that kind of
Well-
program. And I understand it would make things more convenient and easier to,
I guess for me, it's, I realize it's change.
I mean, it's not so much the change, it's just.
I'm
cut
curious about
back.
the system, and I don't necessarily want to say no to the system, because it may actually end up saving us depending on what those fees are. And so by putting this in as a placeholder, it at least lets them explore it, right? Because they can get in there and do the fees, and then do some math on some of their forms and say, how much are we really paying fees, how much are we not? But if we don't have it budgeted for, I know what's going to happen, even if it saves money, because it's going to be this original expense, we're going to say, it's not budgeted, you can't have it.
Yeah, but we also run into the flip side of that sometimes where we say,
We budget.
if we budget for it, so we can.
Yeah,
Is all the money, all the money we save on this budget, would that help our water?
Well, the water fund is its own.
It's a totally
We're not-
different
it's
thing,
a-
so
we're not
it's not
transferring.
gonna help that at all.
No,
We're not transferring out of that one at this point. It still doesn't.
Yeah, I mean,
It doesn't seem like there's very much desire from the council for that system this year. Sid, I just advise you that it seems the way the wind's blowing to take that system out.
Yeah, because you're saying there were 3 people working in the red. If someone brings in a form, they can't fill
But
it
remember, a lot of
out.
times they're not in the building. There's always one person in the building, but it doesn't mean all 3 of them. A lot of times they're out doing field work or doing maintenance on the pool.
Well, I
And,
understand
and this,
that,
and honestly, this would be able to be used, give us basically a point of sales at the pool and all that. But,
Yeah, I guess when I'm looking at this, I'm seeing added technology versus loss of budget for baseball and softball and maintenance. So to me, I would rather I lean towards taking care of what we have and not taking away from the softball and the baseball. But before I would really commit to that, I want to see exactly what that technology is going to do, because John mentioned it.
And I think that's part of the problem too, with not knowing what it's actually going to do or enough about it. It's hard to say, oh, okay, let's do this, when we don't even know what the program is. I don't know what it does. I don't know how important it is. I mean, to me, this is something that you come and propose and we find out more about it, and then you know about it and you can say yes or no.
I want to kind of move forward on this because we spent 20 minutes
Yeah.
on $8,000 and we have a much bigger issue coming
Yeah.
up, and we have a water fund that's a much bigger issue than the $8,000. So why don't we just agree that we're going to cut this out and move forward on it this year, and just settle that issue and just move forward. Let's jump over, so I'm going to do this because we've got Mr. Gilpin waiting patiently for us.
can I just hit electric? I
Hit
think it
electric
should
real
be
quick.
relatively easy, just
Okay.
because was impacted by what we did, and, there again, you should have an overview page. It should be page 6. Basically, well, the first night,
I'm just for my,
the only thing there's 3 changes. I added $35,000 for an additional transfer to recreation, so that, to get that where it was. In distribution and production, we had line items under capital outlay for Oak Street breaker, and I removed those because we want to do, in the CIP, under breaker replacement, we want to finish it up. We've got 4 breakers that we need to do. We just want to do all 4 of them next year and get it done so that we're done with that project, rather than piecemeal that like
So
we
you
have.
removed how much from the capital outlay?
Capital outlay, there was $30,000 in 2020 in distribution, there was $30,000 in 2020 and 2021 in production. And
You moved all that.
we just eliminated that, and now we have $150,000 in breaker replacement in the CIP.
When's that projected? When is that project going to be completed next year?
Which project?
The 4 breakers.
That would be 2020 is when it's scheduled to be.
The big one there is that other transfer into the rec. You got that from 200 to 235.
Right.
You have to cut back on the other one from 100 to 60.
Yes, we cut back on gas from 138 to 63
To the rec.
to the rec. That's why the rec needed some additional from electric issue.
Was there a third item too? You said 3 items changed, the 35,000 and the breakers and then.
The transfer, the breakers, and one, they were in the operational budget for distribution and production, so there was 2. I think those are the only changes from previous to this. You can see we still have a very healthy balance in the CIP. We have very healthy balance and still making in the regular budget.
$1 million question?
Any more questions on the electric? Okay. For capital projects, we talked about the hospital funding. I did have a conversation with Lauren Cordy and Larry Peterson on Friday. Jim Gilpin is here if there's some questions on their financials, kind of standing. It is my understanding that the agreement with St. Luke's isn't finalized yet, so I'm not going to speak on that. I just know that there is still, the thought is that additional sales tax money is going to be needed by the hospital for potentially capital outlay type of purchases and some building maintenance things. I did talk to them and said that I know, at least my assumption from conversations I've had with council, that council wanted to get our money to go into the hospital down to zero at some point. I know that I think there's different opinions on how fast that happens, but I know it needs at some point, the desire is to get it to zero. Currently, via ordinance, we are obligated, or we've obligated ourselves previously to pay through the end of 2019, and that's where the 300,000 is. This one right here.
I would like to note on the council, even if as we set this for publication, it does not necessarily obligate the council to pay the 2020, even though that's in there.
Yeah.
So we have a little bit of time to fully discuss this and come up with an ordinance and pass an ordinance, and get a little bit of a fuller council together. But I think Sid's fundamentally right. From my understanding of the council, the question is whether we end the payment in 2020, the start of 2020, or if they step that down, and if so, over how many years.
So,
Aaron, I know you and I have talked a bit about this. What were you thinking here?
Well, I hate to, it's not a good conversation to have to be a part of, because anytime you're taking money from the healthcare service, I don't think you want to be part of that. But every year for 4 years, I've been part of conversations at the city level that we struggle to make our own ends meet. So, 10 years, how long have we been giving that 300,000?
It's 7 or 8 or 9, wasn't it, or something?
I think we were a year into our sales tax before we actually committed it. So 9, roughly.
Yes. So to me, instead of looking at this and what we're gonna take away and what we're not gonna do, I'd like to maybe focus on what we have done in the past. And since we committed to that 300,000, things have changed for the city too. We've combined the fire department and the EMS, and those expenses are increasing rapidly year after year. So to me, I'd like to see us reallocate those funds back to us. Now, that being said, I don't want it to be, I don't think it's good for the hospital to just do that all in 1 year. I would like to come to an agreement, have a conversation with the hospital to see what type of program we can put in place that would place as little amount as pain and suffering on them as possible.
and that's a conversation I had with Lauren. This is kind of, and Lauren and Larry, this is kind of the proposal that I put together. I told them I think this is more than fair on our part. But I think it helps us show that we have been dedicated, we're not, and we show that we still support that, but we know that we've got to back away from that, because for this fund, we're gonna need money in the next 3 or 4 years for our Highway 54 project. This proposal, looking at 300,000 again next year and then going to 150, basically kind of gets them past the end of what would be the county's current quarter-cent sales tax. They would have the opportunity to go and work with the county to get additional funding. But we would be funded through the end of that. That ends on, I think, March 30th, 2021. And I mean, if you figure the 150 is a half a year payment, we're kind of to June 30th. That gets us 3 months past the end of that. There again, I also told him, I said, I'm not the final decision maker on this either, but that's kind of what part of my thinking on this.
Gene?
Well, you know, I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of citizens called me about this. And a lot of them are against it. They feel that that money needs to come back to the city and be used for our CIP programs. I mean, you know, I don't want to, I'm like Aaron, you know, I don't want to put them in a hardship. But, you know, there's, you know, 300,000, what was it? 300,000 for last year, and this proposed budget that, you know, we paid out. You know, I mean, I don't know economics very well, but, you know, the city could do a hell of a lot with that 300,000. And if, I'm like Sid, if we can work out some sort of a proposal where we phase this out over the next year or so, I would be more apt to do that. But right now, you know, the citizens are telling me, hey, we want the money back in our own coffee pot.
Would you be okay with a phase-out program theoretically? We don't have the details out there, but theoretically,
If theoretically,
you're not dead set opposed to it. It's not a non-starter.
It's not a non-starter, but if those proposed number amounts were cut in half over the next 2 years, I would be more apt to do that.
Nancy? And again, none of this is binding, this is.
This is a tough one. It
And
is a tough
we're
one.
gonna have more
because
conversations on this.
we do see the need in our own budget for that money, but we also have the need for a hospital and to keep that health care here. So it's, you know, it's really tough. I do agree, if we're to do this and to do this, the best way would be a phase out. To work it into a two-step or whatever, to give the hospital time to transition, if that's what's happening with them, and to give them time to plan, and to also give them time to possibly go to the county and get more money, because the county's got a lot more money than we do. They've got, you know, wind farms now and pipeline now, and there's a lot more tax dollar coming into the county than what there is coming to us. Do I want to hurt the hospital? No. Do I want the hospital to be like, you know, Mercy and Fort Scott and close down? No. We need to keep our hospital. That's really important, and especially the age of our citizens.
But again, the idea of a phase out isn't a non-starter.
No, that's probably the smartest way to do it, and the, you know, the kindest way to do it.
Chase,
I mean, we want to be
absolutely phase out.
kind.
So you're fine,
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, it's something that needs a lot more conversation,
It does.
but
But we can
in order
move
to
the
keep
budget
this,
number
keep
in.
this moving, yes.
I would like to see that budget number cut in half. If this.
Well, here's the thing,
maybe phase it
here's the
out.
thing, we can have that discussion of what we actually end up phasing out and how we do it, but remember, we can't
Leave
go.
the line item in there, we can go down, we can't go up.
And we don't have to have that decision made
No,
at budget time either.
we can decide that, we can decide that.
understand.
There's a lot of specifics that will have to go into this conversation, I don't think.
And
We're
some
just spinning our wheels.
And probably a lot of conversation with the board, if you'd like to speak, you may.
Well, just to clarify, and Sid may have already mentioned it, the proposal to date we've received from St. Luke's Health Systems would change the method by which the bonds are paid. So if we sign a lease with St. Luke's Health Systems, they have agreed to fund the outstanding bonds with the assumption that the sales tax revenue currently being provided by both the city and the county's sources of funding could then be used to maintain the building and to provide for the capital outlay budget for the hospital. Currently, in this budget year for 2019, there were $200,000 or $300,000 allocated for types of equipment that were new 5+ years ago when the hospital opened, but technologically needed to be replaced. Those purchases have been tabled, and even the leases of them, depending on whether or not we sign with St. Luke's and go forward. The good news for the city in considering this request is the way St. Luke's intends to do it is your funds would go back into the hospital's capital outlay budget. So it's still staying in the community, it's still going for capital outlay, it's still going for the capital needs of the community. It's not going to pay the bonds. And that's what it currently is being provided for, if that provides any clarification.
Shane, my call might be last, but what are your opinions here? I know there's a little bit.
I'm biased because my husband works there,
There
so
is-
I can't really.
There is, I understand, a little bit, you talk, I want to let you know legally, I don't think you're required to not vote because it's not a direct pay. Ethically, you may, when it comes time, I may, ethically, that's fine. You are able to speak on the matter still though, and just kind of let everyone know you do have a bit of a conflict. But that's selected, you're duly appointed and.
I don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize the success of the hospital.
But
I want them to have enough money to pay their bills every month. I hear about this all the time, so I'm.
But the phase proposal that Sid has made will, I think, fulfill the need as well as permit.
Some buy everyone a little bit of time here.
Right,
We can
because
get
the
with the
idea-
county, and we can get with the board, and we can get.
The idea is to actually prepare the voters to consider doing a half-cent sales tax renewal of the countywide sales tax instead of just a quarter. And then that would, in good
Permanently fix it for the.
in good faith, the city of Iola's helped out, got the hospital built, got the transition done, and then it's a countywide hospital, let's go with a half-cent sales tax.
When would that?
But that'll be an educational effort, and there's no, last time it passed almost 70% yes for this countywide sales tax, so.
When would that be, have some sales tax vote or?
I think it coincides with the budget,
It
numbers.
would likely be, that would be up to the county to do, but they would probably do it at the November election of next year, because it would expire
2020
21.
election.
So they would probably,
If we place the 150 in the projected, as we mentioned earlier, that if you publish this, you can't raise the number, so that's just for the current year, right? Not for
yeah,
next year.
the current year, we would put 300 in, and this year, this 21 number is just more for us, just so that you know that, hey, we've got another big expense coming up, or we got something coming up. So it would change, because it often changes when we move over, it may go up, it may go down on any given line.
That's kind of a placeholder, so that could say 300, that could say 0, we're not obligated at 2021 in this publication.
And as Mayor Wells alluded to, I think whatever we get to, we would want, because our current ordinance only speaks to through December 31, 2019. We would want to do another ordinance saying, here's what it is. It's 1 year, 2 year, whatever, and here's the level of commitment. And then that way it's formalized and kind of ready to go.
And I do agree, if it is a countywide sales tax that is supporting the hospital, because it is a countywide hospital and facility, that does make a lot more sense, because then you are reaching far past our little
And
towns.
for those of you that recall, we were doing something really unusual as a county by by building a new hospital, and it took some creative financing to do it because there was no money in the checking account when we took it over as an Allen County hospital. We had to come up with a $5 million working capital loan to handle that piece of it too. So it's been a very unusual package, and the city of Iola has shown very good support today and continues to as part of this process. But I think any rational person that understands this was really from the get-go intended to be a transitional help, with the idea ultimately when the hospital was stabilized, it would be a countywide sales tax that addressed it.
So if we
The
faded out
ongoing
and the
need.
county picked up the slack,
You're
it
right.
would be,
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
And that's what
it
needs to
wouldn't be
happen.
hurtful.
It shows good
It
faith
needs to
by the city
transition.
as the beneficiary of having that institution here, and I think since the community of Iola is half the, not only the citizens, but at least half the tax base, you'll still be paying the half-cent sales tax if the county votes on it.
But it's sharing the burden with
Exactly.
a lot more
Yes.
people.
That's
It's,
right.
sharing that, and so, I don't know.
So, as the council, let's move forward. I think we're okay with leaving that placeholder there. I know we're gonna have some other discussions, get some hammered out details, pass an ordinance, and that probably is gonna involve conversations between the three bodies, the board, and I know you guys are kind of in a little bit of a limbo too, to hammer out some of those details. But again, even if we pass this budget, it doesn't obligate it. This says we can spend up to that, and I'm sure we'll have some stuff in September, October, probably finalizing some of that. We'll try to get on that sooner rather than later. Does that sound correct?
Yes.
Sound good for everyone? Okay, let's move forward. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Okay, go to the water fund. Well, it would have been the first night,
Okay.
it would have been, yeah, it would have been pages 28. 23 through 28. And then it's, the overview sheet is basically page 3 of tonight's abbreviated packet. Main thing is, we took out the, this is under distribution, but we took out the transfer to the general fund.
Transfer out.
Yeah, the transfer to the general fund.
I'm trying to figure out where
That would be page 25. And we went from 289.83 to 89.83. We already planned on not having, not doing any transfer to the CIP, just because we don't have the money to do that. There is need in the CIP. We don't have the CIP back from, or the master plan back from Burns and McDonald yet, but it will, we will have things that we need to do. You can see that we have, for this year, we have $100,000 for painting the Oak Street water tower. The CIP may have changed, let me double check, because I worked with Mitch, we kind of refined some of the costing on that. This is the CIP tab, so it's on page 28 of what we went through Wednesday night. Some of these, I think we changed, I can't remember if I talked to Mitch before or after. I think they're all the same.
Oak Street, it's in use?
Yes.
Right. Elm Street's the
Yeah.
old 10 million.
It's the big one. And that's the one that we need to paint now, or if we don't do it, we're liable to need to do full lead abatement and be a lot more expensive.
Okay, so the
And remember those water towers are, I mean, luckily we didn't have to use them, but if we did have to use them, it was nice to know that we could have pumped them full of water
Yeah.
and had a couple, had them maybe a day or two. If we ever lose the water plant or something breaks or, those are essential.
There wasn't anything, I thought there was, I couldn't remember if I had a lot of conversations and I couldn't remember if I had talked to Mitch.
But essentially, we're not saving for those projects right now.
Right,
So
because,
that $150,000 to replace the main gates, we know we need to replace the main gates, but we have no way to pay for that, replacing that main gates out of the water fund.
yeah, right now, we could do those two projects, but that's assuming that we transfer $450,000
In 2021, which we have no way to do.
No way of it.
Okay.
So is the water tower $100,000 there?
It is there. We were able to, we did this transfer last year. Oh, well, we were able to do this transfer last year. We have planned to do $150,000 this year yet.
But that's because we paid the bond with other money from the city.
Yes, yes.
So again, I'll reiterate, this fund is simply losing money on every glass of water it sells. Even if you don't transfer to the general fund, even if the transfer to the general fund is zero, it does not make enough money to replace and repair what we are currently doing at that level.
I've taken this out and we're still, the general fund transfer out, and we're still 30,000 in the red for that year.
Is
Or again, we have
that with
some-
a zero CIP too?
That's with zero CIP.
So without, I'm gonna get on the high horse again here for a second. So without paying for any future repairs, just paying the water bond, we still lose, with paying zero to the general fund, we still lose money in the water fund. You can put that one in the paper too.
Still short 30,000.
Still short. And that assumes, and you can say, well, in 2025, we've got everything paid off. You've made zero repairs to the water system for 6 years. And they are gonna be a lot.
When you get it paid off, there's gonna be
It will
updates
be
you
almost
have to do
20,
in the,
what, 20 years? when
It'll
we
be
pay it off
20 years
for it?
old.
I mean,
2025.
expensive updates.
But how will it be then?
You're 20 years old.
20 years old?
And we're already, if you look at the CIP, we don't have a number in there because I put it as a 2025 and the CIP only goes to 2024. But the PLC replacement, we know that that's something that we're gonna need to do. That's $100,000 estimated right now.
Maybe more
We
by
did
then.
liable it to be more.
What is a 10% increase in, due to this fund?
A 10% increase? Well, if we went over here, you can see that we did, this assumes 10% above 1.85. That's what is budgeted for 19, right?
In sales.
In sales. If you do, I mean, you increased it by $200,000.
Some of that's cost to produce it, correct?
What do you mean? Are you talking about increasing sales, like
Like if you
volume
increase the water
or
rate,
The rate of rates.
10%.
the rates? Assuming that consumption stays the same,
Correct.
then this would be, I mean, I can just plug that in here.
20 there, 1,000, million, 100.2, about 400,000.
And how much was it?
2.2.
Okay, 10%, yeah, sorry.
But there's costs in that, I guess.
Well,
Because whenever if you're making some of the water, it costs the city more
Well,
money to make it some of the
but
water.
you said keeping consumption the same and just basically increasing the rate 10% growth. That is what would happen. If you're going to increase consumption, then yes, we would have increased cost
Okay.
associated with that.
But you increase sales.
Right, so you would have some increased sales based with the same rate. So if we could,
Electric chemicals.
Well, who we will sell the water to? I mean, increase it 10%.
Well, we need to increase the
We
rates,
need to
not
increase
the
our
power
water
sale
rates.
of the water. We just need to increase rates so that we can get this fund healthy and get this water plant paid off and get to where we've got money that we can start saving for the repairs that are gonna happen once it is paid off.
That's what scares me, you get it paid off, but then you're gonna have to
Right.
be in debt another, how many
I mean,
hundreds
it's
of
like, you know,
thousands to update it.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, the idea with the master plan is to try to plan out those expenditures and have,
But you
have
have
it
no money,
more of
so-
a, right, and that's the thing, once we get that plan, we can put it in place, but we're gonna have to have.
And that's where we were originally hurt by the fact that those rates were not increased back in the day when they should have been slowly increased and it never happened. And now we are feeling the kick in the stomach from it.
We are paying for it now.
Well, remember as well, part of that problem was that we also robbed every other fund.
Yeah.
Literally, we robbed every other fund to pay this, and we kept those rates low for years and years, while we robbed the electric fund, while we robbed the gas fund, while we robbed the sewer fund, while we robbed, and that's exacerbated all of our problems,
Right.
and all of those other
And
funds.
so now we're the bad guys because we have to raise rates. Well, we're not really the bad guys. It's the guys that were before us that were the bad guys.
So, if I were to ask you, what amount would you like to be able to set back each year? You don't know the answer to that yet because we don't have a master.
I would prefer at this point, we're so close to having the master plan done. I think I would like to see what that figure is. That, if you look at the CIP, you know, it's a pretty aggressive, you know, 450, 500,000. I guess we don't have 500, 450, 350. Savings. That may be more aggressive than what we can stomach, but the thing is, I think we also need to be thinking about, you know, maybe early on, we're only putting 150,000 back in there, or $200,000, and we know that we're kind of trying to get the rates set so that there's an amount that goes back there that will fund the projects that we have lined out. And that's the whole point of trying to get all that into one big plan so that we can really make sure that, yes, we have money to do those projects, and we have a little bit of money that if something comes up that we don't know about at the treatment plant that we need to replace 3 major components, we can do that without hurting our other plan as much.
That fund should also be supporting your general fund.
Water.
Yes.
It's kind of why you own utilities is public, and this is why you own your utilities, is because the idea is it's business. If you sold this to a private business, if you sold, let's pretend, the energy to Westar or utilities to Kansas Gas, they would make a profit on it, automatic.
And none of that money would come back.
And it would go to the shareholder.
It
It would go to the shareholder. So instead, the idea behind utilities is the citizens are the shareholders, and we repay them by doing public works, things like rec department, street repairs, etc., and we keep the mill levy low.
Yeah, I mean, it puts us in a hard spot. It does. I mean, nobody likes to raise rates for people, and you know, there's people out there that, you know, maybe can't afford it, maybe they can afford it, I don't know. Nobody likes it, they yell at us, they get mad. But we've been set up to fail on this particular utility. And that's the bottom line. We were set up to fail. So we've got to figure out how to make this right as quickly as we can, because otherwise it's just going to keep spiraling down. I mean, and then, like you said, you're going to have a 25-year-old water plant that needs repairs, and you have no money in your savings account to repair it. I mean, a 25-year-old home, if you're living in a home, you probably put something away, so if you've got to replace a roof or a gutter or whatever, yeah, you keep doing stuff. And you know you've got that expense.
And that also, not just the water plant, but the distribution system.
Yeah.
We got lines that
Hundred-year-old
are
mains and
decades old.
streets.
So when we built the water plant, they talked about selling water, so that's never panned out, is that correct? We don't sell water to,
Well, we do have some wholesale customers, but I don't know what the plan was at the time of how much sales they were planning on trying to
but it's not a lot.
to
You
gain.
have to
No,
run water lines
Yeah.
to be able to sell
Yeah.
that water, and that's an expense.
Right.
And people aren't
I
just gonna
just
come up with
remember hearing
buckets.
about, we were gonna sell water.
yeah, and we did.
They're gonna come up with their buckets.
We have annexed or been bought or bought out, or they've given us, several rural water districts have come to us and said we'd rather have it. Are we good on this water, that we know that we're not good at the water?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to make the decision today on what to do with it, you just have to know that there needs to be a decision to be made.
Yeah.
And, we know that we're losing 30,000, it won't be the end of the world next year, but it won't be good if we keep it up for 5 years, 6 years, I mean, if we wait till it's paid off.
Just don't flush your toilets as much.
No, we won't.
As I said, we want everybody to flush their toilet.
If the rates go up.
Well, that's the other thing, you get, as rates go up,
You-
sometimes people use less, so then that, you have to balance of trying to figure out what are people actually gonna use and what is the rate goes.
Sid, what else do you have for us today?
Okay, the last thing that I really wanted to focus on was the general fund, because that, we had that, originally with the,
That's on the second night. Okay.
yeah, this would be the second night, this kind of packet. We had a shortfall of about 490,000. We talked about, we had pretty healthy reserve in there. We kind of talked about just utilizing that, or what I understood, we were going to utilize that to help cover some of that shortage. But then we also wanted to take out the water transfer.
Can I just, real quick, Corey mentioned that, Corey mentioned that the general fund should support or the water fund should support the general fund.
Should help, yes.
So in addition to the other utilities, is that the philosophy?
Keeps your property taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's just a philosophy that you have, right? That you either,
No.
well,
Me and Roxanne's department deals with water utility all day long, shut-offs and billing. They're paid out of the general fund, not out of the water fund. But they deal with utilities on a daily basis. So that's some of the idea of why those funds should be helping the general fund.
If you look at places that don't own their own utilities around here, Humboldt comes to mind, they only own a little bit of them, their mill levy is twice as much, it's 90, well, Harvest is more than us.
Yes.
Any of them that don't own their full utilities, they end up paying more in property taxes.
so it's like, I guess that what kind of caught me off guard was that, and I think it's just a philosophy, not that necessarily that it should, it's a way to keep
It is
property taxes
it is
low.
a very common practice if you own a utility, whether that's water and sewer only, or whether it's water, sewer, and electric, and gas, that if you have a business-like enterprise that is under your governmental jurisdiction, that they, I think it's I don't know that 100% of them do, but I would almost bet that it is almost all of those funds would transfer into their general fund because it helps them keep their property tax in.
I'm guessing
And
Gas
it's-
City charges more for their water rates than what we charge them. And
They-
it transfers to their general fund.
They
just like
charge
we do.
more than what we charge our customer, and they buy it wholesale because they have some fees and weird things in there. Is what somebody showed me on their mill
My
levy.
guess is they help their general fund out
That's what
with
they're
their
doing.
water fund revenue.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what Humboldt's doing, and that's, no, theoretically, no, we don't have to, and it may not be something that we do in the next 2, 3, 4 years with where we're at here, but when we get that fund, and we get that fund healthy, it needs to be something that we consider as, is that a source of revenue that we need, that we can tap in? I don't think it's really gonna be feasible in the next 5 years. But in the next 5, 6 years, maybe when we start paying people back in that fund. So, go ahead.
So I was able to work with staff. I trimmed about 130 of that 200. I guess my concern is if we want to trim more than that, I'm going to have to go back to staff and we're really going to have to just get down to, this would be page
2 on, right.
It would be the bottom of page 2 for tonight, I believe.
What I would say on this is, one, we're expecting some savings in the personnel this year.
Well, I looked, if we do personnel at 95%, it would save, about 200 and some odd thousand, so that makes this, this,
What savings is it, personnel, what
Spots that aren't filled,
well, and just looking at the last 2 years, I think we looked at that. I think last year it was at 90%, is that, remember that calculation? I don't have that calculation saved.
too, I think there's some cuts that can be made next year to get that personnel study that may make up some of that deficit in that. We've got the personnel study, and we can go view that whenever it comes in, and that may make up some of that 2020 deficit.
And when you look at the general fund as a whole, I mean, we've worked, each year, in 17, we saved about, $600,000
From the budget.
from budget expenditures.
Okay.
18, it was about, $400,000. So I mean,
So
we
it's
don't
not,
necessarily budget for the worst case scenario, but we try to budget for things that we think, likely expenditures that we're gonna need. And so each year, the goal isn't to just spend all the money that we have, it's to make wise purchases as we go along. And so we have natural kind of savings that we have throughout.
so even though we're projecting a deficit in 2019, that may,
I would be surprised if we have a deficit. Because I think we were projecting a deficit in 18.
and in 2020 then, you might lose some money in 2020, but you might not, depending on some, okay. Because so this is doom and gloom, as that number
No,
looks.
again, these are projections, these are trying to look forward.
Efficiencies and,
What year saved 600?
2017.
In 2018 was 400.
And that's very rough.
That's what we came in under budget, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
there's about, I guess, 17 is closer to, we were roughly $550,000 less expenditures than what we had.
So the budget in 17 was about the budget in 19. Give or take, 5.5, 5.6.
Yeah.
Of the projected. Okay. So some of those increases then, it's just, they're projecting, but they're also cutting within the departments, then they can cut within the department.
Do you have the numbers on where we are this year, today?
Those,
General fund's a weird one though, because it's seasonal. I guess it'd be the same season to season. But you know what I'm saying, like for the rec department, they have big expenditures in June, July, August.
so far this year in general fund,
I thought, when we discussed this the other day, you said we're on track for about 95%.
That was personnel.
personnel, we are
Okay, all right,
at
that was just personnel.
44% of total expenditures at the end of June. 44%. So we should be, 50 would be here, so, and that's where, we don't have, we haven't done chip seal yet, so that would be a big one, but, that's probably the biggest one that isn't kind of been divvied out so far this year.
When is that?
Is there,
They're working on it.
Hopefully in the next week or
So
so,
looking forward to it.
right?
So that would be roughly, if this tracks out and goes up to 95%. So tracks out will double it, and that, for some of those things, that would be 280,000, 281,000 in savings, or non-expenditures. Which would put them at basically breaking even on 2017, or 2019.
on Thursday, I think we briefly touched on sharing the healthcare expenses with the staff. Is there anyone room for discussion on that? Or where are we going?
Again, to me, that's a council, that's something council wants us to explore. We can look at what that impact would be, what that cost would be.
Like making them pay part of their premium, or?
Yeah.
Because right now, if you're single, you get 100% of your premium paid. And if
But you
you're-
pay the first $1,500 out of your pocket. There's no deductible,
There's no
there's no copay, there's no nothing, so they have to pay. And for a family, they pay the first $3,000 out of pocket.
I'm
So-
all that too.
Yeah.
I pay a lot of money out of pocket in insurance as well, every month
Me too.
and every year. I'm just saying we should probably explore what that looks like.
What that,
Nobody wants to
12.5%
be,
is. Yeah.
nobody wants to be punitive here, but I think, the more educated you can be on this stuff.
That we can explore it. And again, that's one of those that when we publish the budget, that doesn't mean that we can't do other things like that, even if it's 1% there or something. That doesn't mean we can't do other things, but again, like I said, the budgets are top end.
Right.
That we're projecting this as the most, not as.
Well, I just
what
didn't
we hope
want
to
to
come in.
say it, and then somebody said you should have said that.
Well, and I guess we can, my thought is that the best time to probably do that is when we'll have our renewal in October or
Say, then he'll
November.
explain to us what their rates are changing, and he goes through all of that, and then once we know what those amounts are, then maybe it's time to expand that discussion.
Is it could go up 12, it could go up 10, it could go up 15, it could go up 8.
Blue Cross.
And again, those are kind of 3-year rolling averages, which,
So it just depends on, because it
Depends
depends
on
on what's
Yep.
happened the years prior.
Does the individual get more of a benefit than the family man? Like you said, the individual gets 100%, the family gets what, 250 stipend?
No,
We pay
for
$200.
family, you pay $250 a month, and the first $3,000 out of pocket.
which is still pretty good compared to a lot of insurance plans on which pays
So
for
the
family.
employee pays 250.
Yes.
Roxanne, didn't we look at this?
They can't pay
But the
for
single,
necessarily.
It would change our policy.
the single plan,
It would
the
kick
employee
us
does
out of
not
the
pay for, and they pay the
grandfather
first
something.
$1,500
Yeah.
out of pocket.
Play out.
That is something that there may be some limitations on the percentage that you can make the employee pay, because it becomes.
It takes us out of that grandfather, the
Yeah.
policy or something.
Yeah.
The Affordable Care Act, they set what were you paying at that time and what were your employees' costs. And if we go above a certain percentage of that, then we have to go to Affordable Care Act, which means we have to pay a lot more services that we don't,
Right now, the
as an
grandfather in our
employee,
policy.
like the normal Affordable Care Act things that they say the insurance has to pay, we don't get that benefit because we're in this.
Preventative care, immunization, stuff like that. It's all.
So there's a threshold that pushes us over that.
Yes. I don't know.
But again, I think we can explore that at a later date. Are you fine with moving forward? All right, what else you got for us, Sid?
That's all of the changes, like I said. I've talked with the department heads about the individual kind of, where we trimmed some things down. Is there other questions about what we talked about tonight, what you want to see for August 12th?
I would just like an electronic copy of whatever the current, that's my preferred method of making and reviewing stuff. I can do that.
Well, do you want, I guess, once we get the state forms going, I can finalize
Is there gonna be some changes on this one from like the
Yeah.
rec department and all
Yeah.
that, some minor tweaks?
so I'll,
But you said you want this second meeting to look through it one more time. And maybe get with you with some questions
Yeah.
before the 12th, if I can get with you, yes, right.
Because I have this with me all the time, so when I have free time, I can review things and take notes,
Okay.
not paper.
Any other questions? Counselor reports, Franklin.
Yeah, so I'd just like to thank the city for the support of the Pharmacy Days concert this year. That's all I have.
Ian,
I don't really have anything tonight.
get the city if you have questions, I know you weren't, or suggestions, I know you weren't at that other one. At the-
I visited with
Awesome. Chase?
I would like to take just a few moments. I know the stoplight at Buckeye and Highway 54 has been brought up a few times. I have received some emails from some citizens thinking that would be an awful idea to remove that. Yeah, the stoplight. Also, talking to people about the issue. So I would just like to encourage council, if this half-baked idea does make it to the agenda, that we really take a look at this. It just seems like a very poor idea to remove that light. Whereas the council, we're not here to meddle just to meddle. It just seems like a waste of our time. That is all.
I would like to add to that.
Okay.
I live down in that area, and I'm always up and down Buckeye Street, and people I've talked to that, no, that would not be a good idea.
Well, as I said, that would just be my approach for discussion at some point.
I would agree with both of you on that issue. I don't think it's necessary. I mean, kids walk to school, you know, just leave it. It's not pretty.
It's closer to town, and you're just
Yeah,
encouraging
so,
people
I mean,
to
to
drive
me, that's just
faster.
silly. So, other than that, I have nothing.
No, my only complaint about that stoplight is sometimes I can sit there for 10 minutes and that thing does not turn green. And I'm thinking it's broken, so I'm backing up, going forward, backing up, going forward. There's been times I just went.
Yeah, I think we've made a conclusion on the stoplight. I agree. I am not in favor of sacrificing public safety for minor inconveniences for pedestrian safety. Walking across for like 15, 30 seconds worth of stoplight. This does not seem like the cost benefit pays out there from a safety perspective. With that being said, I've got the council's perspective. I'm going to go ahead and call that issue a moot point. It's not coming up on the agenda. Other than that, y'all stay safe. Remember all those guys out there working in the heat. It's hot. All the employees drink lots of water. Stay hydrated. Keep those insurance rates down for us. For you. Sid?
The only thing I had tonight is I want to touch base on the training opportunities that have been kind of in the admin reports and the administrative updates. There's COMA and Quora training at, which is the Kansas Open Meetings Act and Kansas Open Records Act training. There's going to be one in Burlington, August 16th. And then the league conference is October 12th through 14th, which I know that I think that coincides with Farm City Days, so that will probably impact a lot of decisions on that. If you are interested in either one of those, if you can kind of let me know by tomorrow, so I get registrations going so that we can take advantage of early bird registration for the conference at least. Other than that, that's all I have.
Got a motion for me?
Yes, I'll make the motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second that.
Motion's made, seconded. All those in favor, please show by sign. Opposed?
Greg, I need to talk to you.